this. So let's get started. We'll go through the slides. What did you guys think of the guest speaker yesterday?
I thought he was pretty knowledgeable about his industry.
You think?
Yeah.
What else?
Thought it was cool that we had for somebody as important and well known as Dave Portnoy and Big Cat and stuff. I thought that was pretty cool.
I mean, I guarantee if he wanted to, he could pick up the phone and call either one of them. I mean, he worked directly for them. And he's not that old. You know, if you just take back the math, he's probably about 33. He's a couple of years older than me. So it's a very young and vibrant industry that's becoming. And I hope that you guys take one thing away from this class, or a couple things. One, knowing the sports betting, knowing the language. I know, Brenda, you've talked about that before, of knowing the language so that you don't sound silly when you're talking to people. Let's be honest, sports is a very male-dominated industry. So if you could sit there and be, quote unquote, one of the guys and understand the language and what's going on, it's a quicker way to gain acceptance in a way. I mean, that's just kind of how it is. And sports betting's there, so if you can understand it, fantastic. I think we saw last week with fantasy sports, there is a lack of women participation and I see it as a massive opportunity to get more women involved. And who would a woman more listen to, in my opinion? Another woman, as opposed to a guy telling him, trying to mansplain everything. So that's just kind of opportunities. But also, if you've never thought about this industry as one to get into, the great part about the sports industry is it's fun, but it's also very much a who you know industry more than anything else. And that's very true in most places. To get traditional, try to get the NFL, Major League Baseball, all those, it's who you know. I can't count the times that I've been in the NFL and, well, we got to get this person a job because his dad's best friends with the owner. That's just how it is. And sports gambling and these other companies that are starting up, they don't care who your dad is. They care about how well can you make us money. And we've seen how small those margins are, so you got to come in, and if you're willing to work, this is where the opportunities are. So that's something to get into, and it can be fun. You don't have to like gambling at all, but it can be fun. I mean, you want people to have a good time. Yeah, it sucks seeing them lose money, but hey, technically they lost money to go to a game. Might as well have fun while you're doing something else. So, but with that, we're diving into today a little bit of, let's just try this. You guys see the slides? Okay. One thing, the reason I really like this class is this intersection between gambling and business, which for those of you that know me, know that I am a very risk-adverse individual. When he said yesterday that, Professor Nick throwing around $100,000, yeah, that ain't me. I'll throw on maybe 10, but that's just how it is. And I like it because what's this mean for organizations? What's this parlay into? My background is in strategy, is in those areas, and now with my work in accounting and understanding it, it gets really fun to see how all this plays together. And if you can understand the industry and how this is, you can find areas like Dave yesterday where he just says, oh, okay, well, I did this. Now I'm going to go help these other organizations and be a really good consultant for them. So those are your opportunities. So you can, again, jump in and ask questions. We'll do it. So talk a little bit about the business model of sports books, which I already have touched on. The impact on sports organizations, which we talked about yesterday, and then impact on states, one we haven't really talked about that much. Some of those fringe organizations that have been popped up and sprouted up, and then future directions. So the books, we heard the VIG, or that implied profit margin. That's what they're really looking for. How much money can they make? The other day I was digging through Penn National's, their publicly traded company. So I was digging through their financial report, and they look to keep or hold about 25% on table games. The slot machines is about 10%. And then sports betting, it's a lot less. So other things you can control, you can't really control outcomes. So then you want to make that profit margin there. When you think about other industries, profit margins are a whole lot higher. A Dick's Sporting Goods probably 40% profit margin. Sportsbook, 8%. So you don't have a lot of wiggle room. You can't afford to, for lack of a better word, screw up, right? And watch a margin just there. Dick's Sporting Goods can screw up and make a bad purchase or two and still have a decent profit margin. Sportsbook, you can't afford to screw up. So that's why, if you remember back, it seems so long ago, 3 weeks ago with Tony, he said it's very much analytic driven. It's kind of the push for analytics. We can get all the human error out of it and purely understand the numbers and where we need to be. That's what they want. And it might be intimidating, but it's actually pretty easy to figure out. There's 2 types of sports books. There's those market makers and retail sports books. Most sports books in the United States are all retail, meaning they are focused more on the lower end betting dollars. You and I, betting dollars. FanDuel is a retail sports book. They do more focus on volume, so lower caps, more take. Your market makers, let's say those are more overseas. Books that come out, they'll release lines and just kind of let the market dictate where they want to be to get to the most accurate line. If you take another thing away from this class is that there is no perfect way to set a line for a game, right? It's going to be fluctuated how we go about what we're doing. The one thing that we haven't talked about a lot is the tax ramifications of this. In the United States, the federal government has an excise tax. Excise taxes are similar. You think sin taxes, your alcohol, everything else. There's an 0.25% on total volume done at a sports book. So let's say a sports book does, quick math. Let's just say they take $1 million in. So $1 million. Do $1 million, 0.0025. So the federal government gets $2,500 of that. So they got to get their cut, and then each state is taxing things differently. So some states are higher, some states are lower than others, but it gets a unique thing. Sports organizations did propose what they called an integrity fee, meaning that the NBA or in NFL would give their own statisticians or their most accurate data. They have the official data on games and stats, and in that they were charging 1% of all of total volume. So if you're a sports book, you're like, no, peace out. Like that just took my 8% and dropped it down to 7%. That's a big amount. So that's somebody's job. That's what we're doing. They said, piss off with that. And NBA was the first one to do it. And when there was enough backlash from every sports book in essentially Las Vegas, the leagues were like, oh, we won't do that. But it's still occurring. Next week, we have a great guest speaker in Rick Gelman, who I was talking with him. The PGA Tour is trying to do this in a way without calling it an integrity fee. That's what they're doing. They're trying to monetize their stats. So, interesting way to look at it. And here's some taxation. So, you can see the different states. Pennsylvania is one of the highest. Pennsylvania is charging 34% of revenue made in the state. So that's high. So that means that if a sports book does $1 million in the state as their take, what they took in, or what they're holding, at the end, after they pay the federal government, so whatever their $2,500 they're paying there, that means that they owe $34,000 to the state of Pennsylvania. No, more than that. Zeros must be up. That means that they owe the state of Pennsylvania $340,000. So not exactly the greatest market for there, but you see other states such as Tennessee with 20%, Indiana at 9.5%, 12% Mississippi, Arkansas there. What's Iowa? Iowa 6.75%. So you're going to find, and this is where states, and this comes into a public policy side of this, where, yeah, we want to legalize and we're going to tax the daylights out of it. Great. You're not hurting the individual players. You're hurting the sports books when you do that, hurting the organizations. Contrary, I have kind of proposed and looked into this taxation issue with states where if you win money, so let's say New Jersey. So you win money in New Jersey, and it's you play some money and you win $5,000. So you, because you won over $3,000, are going to get a slip, and you're going to be notified that the IRS knows that you won $8,000. So because of that, you have to claim that on your annual income taxes. Well, that goes to the federal government. So, but the state gets nothing. The state gets nothing from you. In a way, it does through revenue at a later point. But I want a model that's similar to like a sales tax, where you win $5,000. Well, of that, you're going to pay an immediate 7% or 8% of the winnings. So not only are we taxing the sports book, but we're also taxing the individuals in the state. So as a state, we're going to make more money because we're taxing both. And then you just don't make it taxable on your income statements. But it's a different way to look at some of these taxation, because as this goes through, ultimately what I think will happen with this is you're going to see competition amongst states. That one state's going to be having a lower rate, so you're going to see a lot of action shifted towards a lower revenue state or lower tax state, which is going to drive rates down. So as an industry, you're kind of playing the long game with this, hoping it plays out, but it also can hurt a state in the long run. Like Pennsylvania, there's no way they're going to be able to stay at 34% of the tax revenue, but no one fights it, then they can stay there. But they don't see a mass drop. Problem with Pennsylvania, you can flip over to New Jersey, or if you want to play. Well, that's where we talked about yesterday a little bit about the Interstate Wire Act can come in too. So as Kat pointed out yesterday, it's not, albeit it's illegal to bet probably using your MyBookie app or one of these other ones. The federal government might not be knocking on your door to say, hey, we're going to arrest you. But Kat just committed a federal crime yesterday, or admitted to a federal crime yesterday. So, there you go. How do you feel about that, Kat? Fantastic. If I become an IRS agent, I'm going to come after you. I'm just kidding. Just kidding. So when we think sports organizations and making money, can't go any further than Jerry Jones. Yes, he's exactly right. They're ready to make him some money, but money rules everything with them. That's why yesterday the first question I asked was all these leagues who were one time very hesitant to sports betting and everything that comes with it. Now we're like, hey, show me the money, right? So, and that's the ironic part about it, but you realize how much of a business it is. And where you're good enough for this person now, but where were you previously? So money rules everything. NBA did propose an integrity fee. It got shot down. They're not doing it. Do I see in the future the NFL or some of these other leagues be having cozy partnerships with FanDuel and these? Yes. PGA Tour has a relationship, I think, with DraftKings. And the others, yes, Kat.
What does that mean? Like they just get a percentage of the money betted?
Yep. Yep.
So why would they get a percent? So if you do 1%, you get 1% of all the money that the casino makes, or 1% of all the money that anyone bets at all?
Money that they make.
Okay.
So revenue that comes in.
Okay.
And the integrity fee is for their proprietary use of the NBA, NFL, Major League Baseball's stats that they keep for running things. So you would see places like for baseball, what is it? I forget the website now. Fangraphs and some of these others would probably disappear because they're going to have to pay to get that data. So that's the integrity fee. It's not going to stick around. It won't stick around. It won't. They can't. Sports books just won't allow it, and they know they have more power. So the leagues, it was an initial attempt by Adam Silver and some of the other commissioners to be a money grab and let's take it, and they shot back against it. So there's that. Illinois is allowing co-branded sports books. So in the state of Illinois, you could go to I don't know, a Bulls game, and inside the arena you could have a Chicago Bulls sportsbook co-branded with Bet America or Twin Spires. So there's opportunities there where they can make money. So if I'm a team, I don't want to. It's just like Barstool and Penn National. Barstool is getting the Barstool Sportsbook, but it's run by that, and they're just run by Penn National, and they're slapping a Barstool logo on it. That's all it is. So that logo helps, and it's a nice co-branding operation. There will be a betting lounge in Las Vegas inside Allegiant Stadium. So another reason to go to a game, which would be fun when the Super Bowl is there. I believe when the Super Bowl arrives in Las Vegas, is it in 2 years, I think? Super Bowl will be there. You will see probably more money flow through Vegas than has ever flown through there before. Because and betting and everything else. You used to be on a fight night, big time heavyweight fight night, you would have, 100, 550, $200 million bet that night or that day. Put the Super Bowl out there, I guarantee you're going to have a lot of money that flows through Vegas or other places. So, yeah. And then some of the fringe organizations we've seen and heard from people so far, betting publications that are available, that are there. Betting blogs, Twitter, all these. What's the Action Network is one that was started. And coincidentally, the Action Network, there we go. The Action Network is funded by the Cherning Group, which is also a, majority owner of Barstool Sports. So they see where the action, better term, action is going. You have another thing on Twitter, I forget her name. She's from Vegas, and there's a lot of people that have popped up and created their own personas and what they're doing and giving bets and everything else. So there's opportunities for this industry outside of the normal amount of money in normal classical businesses, where someone could just pop up and be like, "Hey, here's this," and we're going to hear from one next week about exactly how all this works. And then you have offshore betting operations, which are it's always fun if you search sports books or what they are. See the company code or the country codes at the end of email addresses. So in the United States, all of ours end in .com. But then if you look at other countries, if it's in Canada, it's .ca. If it's in Latvia, it's .lv, I believe. You have Costa Rica is another one. So you can track through those, and you might see where they're actually established. That's fun to play around and see. Some of the future directions that I see, some market consolidation will occur. FanDuel being a big behemoth that it's becoming, purchased TVG, which was a major horse racing operation. So FanDuel started out with the daily fantasy, what they're doing. You heard from Dave yesterday when he talked about it. They acquired TVG, which was, I believe, the biggest horse racing handicapping betting website. So that's a big purchase there. So now it brings everything under the fold where they have sports betting, horse racing, daily fantasy. Now they're a conglomerate in what they're doing. Expansion acquisition partnerships. We heard yesterday Barstool's been national. Sportsbooks moving to other states. So we're, let's say in Vegas where it started, and you have William Hill that was out there. Well, now they're in New Mexico, they're in Iowa, they're in other places. So that business is now expanding out to different places where same thing that Penn National is trying to do. It's not, even if it's not one of the things that happens in the industry is casinos don't want to take the risk of operating a sports book. So they'll pay or go into an agreement with a Williams Hill or FanDuel or one of these to come in and run their sports book, maybe even build a retail sports book in their casino. And that provides opportunities. The casino doesn't have to worry about it. They just get a straight cut of whatever they do, or they play triple net leases on it and they get a take of the revenue. That's all potential. But I think one of the biggest ones is virtual expansion. And I think it's one of the biggest avenues of growth for for sports betting in general. Williams Hill, example of them, I looked at their financial statement from England. 81% of their revenue is derived from online action. So that tells me people would rather place bets on their phone. We heard that yesterday where it's easier one. I don't know if you have ever been to an actual retail sports book before. They're fun, but I'd rather just do it from my phone if I live in a state where it's legal and I don't have to leave. I can just sit there and be like, all right, let's play this game. I don't have to go in. I don't have to suffocate on cigarette smoke when I walk into a casino because that's all there is. Get depressed by a granny sitting there spending her Social Security check on a slot machine. I can just do it from my couch. Not have to leave. So there's those options. Yeah. So with that, any questions at all? None? Okay. Next week, I will not have a formal lecture. What? Was there questions?
Yeah,
Where's the question?
I'll ask something.
Okay.
So I know like kind of how you were just talking, like if other states start like legalizing it or they're allowed to just have like sports books in them, do you think it'd be bad for like it's like good I feel like for the overall company, whoever like owns it all, would it be bad for like the individual states? Because like do you think they would lose, like they might not, I'm not asking this so poorly, like would they see maybe a possible like decrease because people who normally would travel to come to them can just like do it in their own state now, if that makes sense?
Potentially. You would have competition between states, which also gets to, yeah, I mean, there would be competition, but I don't know, it gets interesting. So if you have a retail sports book where you can actually go into a casino
Mhm.
and place your bet, uh, anybody can do that. Like anybody can go out to Las Vegas and place a bet, go to New Jersey and place a bet in person. I don't have to be a resident of that state to do it. Online, I have to be a resident of that state. That's why some states are allowing online betting, some aren't. So the states who are not allowing online betting, I think, are hurting themselves right now drastically. But in a state like Pennsylvania, New Jersey, that whole area, I mean, I could drive to one or drive to the other. It's not that far. So yeah, got it.
Wouldn't it end up being like the so like every state sells tobacco, but some states are taxed differently. So like if the state taxed sports betting differently, like people would still go. Like I'm from Maryland, like a lot of people, it's cheaper in like South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia to buy tobacco. You see what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
if the laws were like that, wouldn't people maybe like that could help states like still bring out of state people to go?
So yes and no. The difference between sports betting and tobacco sales or alcohol taxes is that as a business, if I'm, I don't know, Nick's liquor store and I'm selling vodka or whatever, and I have to pay a 20% tax, I am, as a business owner, am not paying that 20% tax. You, as the customer, are paying that 20% tax. I pass it off to you, which is why that bottle of vodka is 20% more expensive in New Jersey than it is in Pennsylvania. With sports betting, I cannot pass off that tax to you. I can't put that into my odds because then my odds get skewed and then it's hard to do. So I can't physically pass that off. You would have to create a separate entity of taxation to one tax the books, the operators, and then have an individual tax on winnings by the player. Then if that happens, then there could be competition between states. I think for that to fully happen, though, while Dave yesterday didn't think that it was a big deal with the Interstate Wire Act, the Interstate Wire Act has to be overturned, corrected, modified to fully play into this sports betting thing where we could live in South Carolina, and while sports betting might not be legal in South Carolina, I can still play it because I can play the sportsbook that's out of New Jersey or one of these other ones. So that's just the aspects that come into it with taxes. So it's slightly different than your tobacco cigarette tax to drive that competition and pull people over. So I'm working on a paper with my tax professor on it, so it's fun. That's what I do in my spare time. Any other questions for me? Okay, so next week, we have a guest speaker. I believe it's on Wednesday, I think, Wednesday or Thursday. I don't have material for next week. You have your final exam, which I think I have to post that, or well, I don't know if it's up there yet. I haven't checked, but I'll post that for you, and that's really all you have next week. So guest speaker, check Moodle for the day and time. Please show up for that, and then yeah, that's all we got. So it's been fun. Hopefully you liked it. Hopefully it wasn't a waste of your time. Hopefully you learned something new. But outside of that, that's all I got. So thanks, guys. We'll see you later.